Greetings and salutations, viewers. Welcome to episode 107 of Word Ninjas Live. I am your host, Charles, and your regular instigator of creative insanity. I don't know how much productivity happened. Mostly just shenanigans. And joining me tonight are Will.
Hello.
Justin.
In a slightly darker room than usual, but I'm here.
And Calvin.
Hello.
And we come to you tonight to talk about things. Mostly shenanigans that happened because we survived In-CON-Ceivable last weekend. Although survived isn't really quite the right term, considering we had a lot of fun, I think. Or at least I had a lot of fun. I don't know about the rest of you.
Much fun was had by me as well. I won't speak for the others.
I think I had a respectable amount of fun.
It was good. It was good. And coming from me, that's high praise.
So, as we do after a convention, it's time to do a review. Now, we tend to sort things into stuff like the fun things that happen, the complicated stuff, and then just the unfortunate happenstances that happen to befall us at every convention, because there's always something that goes a bit wonky. So
this was the convention of forgetting things.
Yeah, and we didn't even put that on the list. We forgot to put that on the list. Very fitting.
Oops.
But let's kick things off with what was fun about In-CON-Ceivable.
Well, we got a chance to see all of our various friends and contacts and people we've grown to know and love.
Good to see RJ and crew again, and our booth mates from last year, or at least booth neighbors. Rusty and Jim and Sal. Always a fun time.
Really got a chance to chat with Sal this year. Didn't get a chance to last year, and it was definitely worth it.
He is a fun person.
You know what I like about Sal? Is that he has the aura of being, especially if you look at his T-shirts, he's got this mystique of being like you'd be afraid if he was like really like extra creepy and like a little bit too much, but he really knows where the line of appropriateness and inappropriateness is. Like I've seen how he acts around his women fan base, and you always think, ooh, what is this character going to be like? Is he going to get a little touchy? But he didn't. He's very professional, and it sounds like I'm, in shock. And I don't mean any disrespect to Sal, but the overall persona and the character he plays is a little, how do you say, a little rough around the edges, a little
risque.
Yeah, a little risque.
Tends to focus on the blue humor here and there.
Yes, but he's extremely professional about it, and he's not the creepy mall Santa that his character sort of, somewhat could portray him as, if you didn't know anything about him.
Just because he's a vampire Santa doesn't mean he can't be a gentleman.
Right. So I was very happy, watching him interact basically across the aisle with everybody. I mean, it was good.
And we got to make a lot of new friends this year, I feel like. Some with the vendors, some with the attendees.
Yeah, I'm actually planning on reaching out and talking to people more often that we connect with. Even people that we see every year, I don't really have that much of a personal connection with. Katie being an example. Finally friended her on Facebook after knowing her for several years and talking to her and having a good time for several years. I always kept convention Justin away from normal Justin, and it's time to meld those two worlds back together.
It's a dangerous move. Once
Yes.
you do, you can't really go back.
Right. I mean, I'm not gonna collect attendees like Pez dispensers, but I am going to reach out and connect to people that I find interesting, and that have similar goals and similar size projects that we do, and see if we can work together. Exchange of oh, come on the podcast and do an interview, and oh, maybe I'll do a guest spot on something. Just getting the network closer together instead of at arm's length, which is what I think I've been doing.
Yeah, it would be nice to get in touch with some of the authors that were there, since there were a good half dozen of them this year. And hopefully get some of them on the show, because they were all fantastic people. Let's see what else was on the list. Sunday night. After the convention was all said and done, we packed up the cars, but we still had the hotel rooms for another night, so we actually got a chance to just hang out and decompress and have fun. And since it's us, we like to do that in style, by which we went out for hibachi for dinner, because our regular restaurant was closed, which is a shame.
Thankfully, not for good. It was
True.
just closed. It was just closed because it was Sunday.
Yeah. But we did get to actually check out Northampton finally, and realize that Northampton is a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's not the largest of towns, but really, like everything that's there is just awesome. And we only got to like really scratch the surface. Actually, I have a friend who lived in Northampton for a while and told me about a couple of things after he realized I had been there. So next time we're up there, we're definitely gonna have to do some more exploring.
Nice. Maybe next time Justin won't distract me with food so that I miss bookstores.
I am going to call the bookstores in advance and make sure that they put the closed sign up.
I wasn't seriously considering going in there as we were walking by, but they were open, so I thought that was nice. We go to get more food after food, wander around a bit, and as we walk back, oh, they're closed. All part of Justin's diabolical plan.
Considering you had already just bought a series of books that same day, I think I made the right choice.
Only 7. I could have gotten more.
I'm not convinced you could have.
There were more.
No.
If
I know
there's a
Ed
book,
had a
CJ's
lot of-
gonna find it.
And we also got to do some fun recordings for Not Suitable for Word Ninjas after all that.
Hopefully.
Still got to sort through all the video, make sure that any of it is usable. Though I'm pretty sure the Lunchables video is definitely going to be a thing.
Gross.
Childhood complete.
Gross.
Childhood both completed and ruined at the same time.
I'm now worried for like the 70 other things on that list of food that I have never eaten from childhood that eventually will be thrown at me.
We still have that recording somewhere from Kineticon, where we tallied it all off.
Oh, jeez. Other fun stuff that happened is apparently coffee runs, according to the list.
Yeah, occasionally the volunteers that were working at the convention walked around and offered up food and beverage from the green room for the people that were basically sitting at the table the entire time and couldn't afford the lack of publicity to get up from the table. And we were included in that list, at least as far as the coffee runs were concerned. And
And
we
food
even
too,
what was that?
which was and food as well, which was a very nice, very nice touch.
Okay, I didn't never got a food run, but they were everything was very randomly placed, so I probably just wasn't there during one of those runs.
I
But
missed every single run, even when I was standing next to the table.
that's true.
The
I
guy
remember
was
that.
right behind you and said, "Do you guys need coffee?"
I'm surprised your coffee sense didn't tingle and you didn't turn around at that very moment.
I was distracted by talking to RJ.
Fair enough.
But yeah, we even tried to like pay them for the coffee run, and they didn't take any of our money. So it's a nice touch. It's a little thing, you know. It doesn't cost them a whole lot, uh, you know, a couple bucks here and there, and it shows that they're really caring, and they're small enough where they can get away with something like that. So it was nice.
It was also convenient that not Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts was like 1 mile down the road, so it wasn't really out of the way.
Hmm.
I think overall it was a very well-run convention from what I saw. I'd never heard any complaints about anything in regards to how the convention was run or set up. Maybe because we were just used to the layout at this point, because they use the same rooms and the same setup pretty much for everything.
Right.
But whenever I asked attendees or other vendors or a few other press people how they were doing, everyone was having fun. So it seems like RJ and crew did a good job.
Hey, kudos to them.
And
Things.
it was kind of nice getting a corner table or an extended table because we're in the corner. That was appreciated.
Yeah, that was a fun plus.
Were there any other highlights from the weekend that people wanted to discuss and toss out there?
I almost killed Calvin.
Thankfully, you did not.
Thankfully. I swear he laughed for 5 minutes straight.
Pretty much.
Oops.
Yeah, I was not ready for that video you showed me. Not even close.
I'm just glad I saw your initial reaction when the surprise part was dropped. Your eyes just went so wide. It took you a second to register what had been said, and then you just died of laughter for about 5 minutes straight.
That was absolutely ridiculous. But it was fun. That was hilarious.
Good
Ridiculous but
times all
hilarious.
around.
I know another highlight, but it's not mine, it's Calvin's. Steampunk 101.
Ah, yes. Steampunk 101. That was an awesome panel. Ran by a very awesome woman who I got to meet last year, and I was very happy to be able to chat with her again this year. And I was lucky enough to be able to drag her to our booth and introduce her to everybody, so you guys could experience how awesome she is.
Well, she's a librarian. She's awesome by default.
Exactly. And on top of that, she's a steampunk librarian.
It's kind of hard to beat that.
So, cheers to Sarah Hodge Weatherby. Awesome steampunk librarian.
It would be nice to get her on the show at some point if we could.
Let's definitely see what we can do. I think another thing that I thought was really cool was the I forget what charity it was that RJ and everybody presented a check to, but I thought that was a really nice gesture. Between that and having the Red Cross there, running a blood drive on Saturday, which was something I was able to excuse me, I was able to donate to. So I was very happy about that.
I don't have any blood to give. It's just caffeine and ramen at this point. So caffeine and sodium, really.
I'm sure there's a couple of red blood cells they would have been able to extract through all that.
Unlikely.
And I
They
was
have
still
very
recovering.
advanced machines.
I was still recovering from sickness, so I couldn't donate blood this time, unfortunately.
Ah,
But I would have otherwise.
But it was nice that they were able to coordinate that. And I'm blanking on the name of the group they donated to on Sunday. It'll come to me probably at like 3 in the morning or something. Like that. But yeah, they really put a lot together this past weekend. It was impressive. But that said, there were a few complications.
Oh yes, yes there were.
Yeah.
Mostly for me, and not necessarily this convention related. This unfortunately fell on the same weekend as one of my best friend's weddings. So I had to somehow accomplish both tasks in the same weekend. Went up to very, very northern New Hampshire for Wednesday night, and then rehearsal on Thursday, wedding on Friday, and then I drove all the way to the convention right after that, and then did convention stuff. And unfortunately, also I was dragging my wife around with me, because she was going to the wedding too, and I couldn't just go back to the house right away. So she ended up stuck in the hotel for quite some time. She made the best of it, and she was fine. And then after that, come Monday morning, I had to go straight to work. I didn't even get to go home first. And also on Sunday morning, I drove the wife back to the house, and then went back up to the convention for more stuff to do. So it was a lot of driving. It was a lot of trying to figure out the schedule and a lot of pre-planning. But I think it all came together. This is one of those conventions where it's not super duper busy, so it wasn't a huge deal. I would have liked to have been there on Friday, but being there for the rest of the weekend seemed to have worked out fine.
Yeah, we make it work. Let's see. One thing that was kind of complicated was taking the most advantage out of our press passes, as Myself, Calvin, and Justin all had press passes, but none of us were either there the full time or at 100% health at the full time. We each kind of stumbled here and there, so we all kind of missed events or opportunities or just the possibilities of using the press badges, which is a shame, but we still got content every single day. So it's not like we missed out entirely, but I had expectations of we have 3 press badges. We should be able to actually tackle a fair amount of stuff. And then life gets in the way, as it does.
Yep.
So that was unfortunate, but we did get several events worth of recordings, a fair amount of photos. I don't know what the final tally was. And we got a nice little convention story from the booth, as we do, which has been posted and was actually relatively coherent for a convention story. And kind of tying into taking advantage of the press badges is just overall health. Health is getting complicated for all of us now. There's a lot of factors that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, something that we're we're all still working on.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure the amount that I ate and what I ate this weekend did not do me any favors. And I think for me, Friday was the hardest day.
Hmm.
I'm just glad I took that day off to take the trip up. It made things a lot easier. At least a lot easier than how I tried to do things last year.
Hmm. I mean, you don't want to take a bus all the way up and then figure out how to get over and then figure out how to get home and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, there's no, well, at least any trip that's going to be like less than 4 or 5 hours, there's no reason that I will ever try to take a bus at 5 o'clock in the morning ever again. Just no, not anymore. Never again. No.
Hopefully, we're never in a situation where that even has to be considered.
I hope not either. Especially since things are travel situations for me come next year will be a little bit different.
Hmm. Were there any other complications from anyone else's end in regards to In-CON-Ceivable?
Mm, nothing else I could really think of.
Yeah, all I'm getting are just blank stares, so onwards to the unfortunate things that happened. Well, because of how not on top of things we were early on, we missed out on the opportunity to host panels at In-CON-Ceivable, which is unfortunate as we did panels last year. We just didn't plan far enough ahead of time to coordinate that for this year. But seeing as we don't have new panels created yet, it's not that much of a loss because we'd just be repeating some of our old panels, maybe updating some of the bullet points, so it wouldn't be much of an update compared to some of the panel ideas we have going forward for next year. So it's unfortunate, but we're still working on new content, so it's not the end of the world. But we also missed out on attending a few panels, or at least I did, simply because one of them I tried to attend and the coordinator wasn't there yet, which travel logistics, it happens, it's unfortunate. The next day, the one I really want to go to, I skip entirely because migraine. That knocks me out. Because health. Who needs health? I don't know about others and any panels that they wanted to attend or did attend or missed or this or that. But for me, it was just annoying and unfortunate. Because there were a lot of good panels this year. And I kind of wanted to attend more of them, but just didn't happen.
I missed a few things in the evenings because I was just so exhausted from the wedding that I just needed more sleep. And that was the unfortunate part. Um, Especially in the, like I said, the evenings. There were a couple that I really wanted to go to.
Anybody else? I'll take that as a no.
I was just pleased I got to go to that one writing memorable characters panel on Saturday.
That one sounded really good, and I'm glad we got a chance to record it, so I can at least view it later.
Yes. It was a fun one.
I'll get through all of the media at some point. Hopefully this weekend. Perhaps sooner. Time permitting.
Another stumbling block from this past weekend was everyone forgot things. But as I was in charge of the booth, since I had all of the booth materials for this one, I forgot something rather important. In that I forgot our triangular tube, which has our big banner, our brand new little banner for the table, and our button display that shows all of the buttons we have for sale. Because all of the displays I put in a triangular tube because they all fit in there and it made sense. But then I put it off to the side along with other stuff like our green screen that we haven't really taken advantage of. And forgot about it. So we had to improvise, which I think our improvisation actually worked pretty well for the setup we had, but it was still very frustrating and an unnecessary stress on everyone's part to figure things out on the fly. But we all did kind of forget things throughout the weekend. So while that was the biggest one, it was not the only one.
I forgot once again to get cash before the ATMs all ran out within a 2-mile radius. I should have learned this from the last con we were at, but I did not learn. At one point, the ATM, I walked by and it was not out of order and out of cash, and I was like, oh, I should get cash later, instead of, oh, I should get cash right this very second. And then not like 4 hours later, it was gone.
Yep.
But that might be for the better, because God knows what I would have bought if I had cash on me.
Me, I managed to forget toiletries. Important toiletries. Good grief. Don't know how I managed that. Half the stuff was staring me in the face.
At least the rest of us had spares you could borrow.
Yes. Which was much appreciated.
I think we...
The only
You
reason
mostly just forgot some cosplay-related stuff.
the only reason I had all my toiletries is because I needed to create a new toiletry kit since my old one is still covered in toothpaste after my toothpaste thing exploded
Oof.
from a KaiCon because I overpacked it and it went squish.
Yeep.
Hmm. And the other unfortunate thing, which is just par for the course because of the way our current sellables are, but another convention where we striked out for profit compared to what we put in for the investment. Which it is what it is. Because of the primary seller being $1 buttons, you can only make so much. Which is why we're still pushing forward on a lot of higher end or higher priced items, which will also be worth the higher price, but we're expanding our products. Probably not until your mini-con at the earliest, though, unless we manage to push out some new button designs by Hartford Comic Con, but that is unlikely. Because that's in like 3 weeks, if not less now. And if I throw new button designs at Ed, he'll probably throw something heavy at me in return.
Like the giant metal button maker itself.
Yeah. Pointy end first, of course. But hopefully we can push some of the higher end stuff out so that we can start building up our revenue streams so that we can eventually invest in that 2.25 button press so that we can do the larger size buttons. Not just for bulk orders for other people, but there's plenty of design opportunities for us as well for larger sized buttons. We can actually fit more on there and show a bit more of our artwork.
Mm.
But that's a solid $400 investment for the button press and the materials for 2.25-inch things, so we're working on that. We're playing Reality Man style on that and saving up for it.
Yes, just make sure you get it before I'm chief financial officer.
I'll get it the day before.
Perfect. We made another investment that worked out for the best, also, and we got comments as such.
Oh yeah. There has been ongoing commentary on this podcast and our other podcast and other things that we do in regards to our main production printer, Cranky McNever Prints, because it never plays nice. It was an Epson inkjet, which for the size did a lot. Tabloid size printing, I think almost tabloid size scanning, so that was useful. But the quality and reliability was lacking. So we've invested in a laser jet now. Little smaller, can't do tabloid size stuff, but we weren't really taking advantage of that anyway. So our bulk order button print stuff, things, whatnots that we offer up are now a lot better quality, and that every single button looks pretty darn good actually, rather than having colors run or die out. So hopefully we'll be able to push that a bit more, because we don't mind doing bulk orders for other people. We have the materials. And if we ever get the 2.25-inch button materials, we could do that as well, which would be fun. And who knows what else we'll be able to do with that printer to take advantage of it. Because we have plenty of things that we could print. Yes. Okay. Overall, what do people think of In-CON-Ceivable 2016? Let's give a summary of the overall convention for our review.
A++ would attend again.
Anybody else?
I do
Last
again.
year,
Oh, go ahead.
last year was great, but yet they made it better this year.
Hmm.
Yeah, I enjoyed this year a lot better than last year for a number of reasons, but they really did step it up this year, and it definitely showed. And I'm looking forward to 2016 and what's in store then.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun this year, just as I had fun last year, but I have a feeling that 2016 is gonna be even bigger and better than this year. So I'm excited. I'd be all for going again next year. Hopefully, we'll be in a place where we can go as vendors, along as press and maybe panelists if we get those panels put together in time and actually get on top of that. Because I have a feeling that some of our panel upgrades would go over pretty well there. I think stuff like the Literotica bingo would be a lot of fun.
If we can get a good turnout, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that'll definitely be into it.
Hmm. And we have potentially a whole year or so to figure that out.
Yep.
So yes, general consensus is In-CON-Ceivable 2015 was a success. Definitely worth attending, and hopefully people can attend next year, whenever it may be scheduled. Because I know they were looking for a good weekend where there weren't many other conventions going on.
Right.
All right, with that, onwards to our weekly talkie point segment. And this week we are talking about flash fiction. We had an audience submitted question of what compromises do you have to make in a story to write flash fiction? Because flash fiction, by definition, is comparatively short. It can be one sentence long, or it can be. I personally put the limit at about 5,000 words and below, but there's as many definitions of how long flash fiction can be as there are just opinions from writers in general. But I was curious what the crew thought in regards to just how do you create a flash fiction length story and what compromises are there in regards to accomplishing that. And as I don't really do flash fiction, I only really did it back in first college during creative writing classes when I didn't have a choice because there were time limits in class. The main thing that I came up against was you can't really do an in-depth story in 5,000 words or less. At least not in my style, because I like to put in a lot of description in there. And you can only do so complex of a story because you're limited to words. And I like to have multiple characters who actually show clear story arcs and growth from beginning to end. I have not figured out how to uh, put that into 5,000 words or less. I'm trying to think of a word, the opposite of dilute, basically, but I'm blanking on the word. Concentrated. It's hard to concentrate a character's growth in 5,000 words or less, or at least I haven't really bothered figuring out how to do it. Flash fiction isn't really my thing. I'm used to nano level stories where it's 50,000 words or more, not 5,000 words or less. If I want 5,000 words or less, I need to do that for work. And then that's business writing style. There aren't really characters or story progressions in those. Those are just articles. So not really flash fiction. How did other people take on this question?
Well, as somebody who has never really done flash fiction, I I really don't have a concrete answer, but just thinking about it from from the definition of what flash fiction is, what flash fiction is, for me, like my biggest sacrifice would be character development. In that they're like 5,000 words in my mind is not really enough to try to flesh out like really what make characters tick. But with that said, I'd probably focus more on narration and how I would describe things to try to move the story along, and probably try to emphasize dialogue wherever I can. Just basically work to my strengths with trying to move the story along.
I'm excuse me. I'm fairly in agreement with Calvin there. I've written both. I don't know if they're flash fictions, but I call them short stories as well as longer stories. And one of the toughest things is setting everything up, setting up your characters and your scenario and your plot. In a longer story, you can spend a chapter doing character introduction. In a flash fiction, you have a paragraph to do the same thing. So there's a lot of detail you have to leave. You can't write anything, well, you can't, but you have to be picky about what kind of background information you provide unless it's absolutely necessary for your flash fiction. It's probably better to just leave it out. Even if it's really cool and interesting and helps talk about and introduce something interesting about the character's personality or explains why the character's personality might be in such a way, if it's not relevant to your flash fiction, you're probably better leaving it out and kind of sacrificing it for your word count, for focusing on what's important for your little mini plot. Focus more on the present and what's going on immediately in your flash fiction and what's important for pushing that forward. There's definitely going to be less character development, but you can put more detail into immediate actions and not have to worry as much about long-term consequences, because you're not necessarily going to write what comes next unless there's a part 2 to your flash fiction.
And does Justin have any commentary to toss in?
I thought I wasn't really the one to talk to about this, having never written flash fiction before, but it did inspire me, this question, to start and have it be another piece of content that will ultimately go on my website. I want to try it, and I want to do some of it and report back my findings. Flash fiction, similar to short story, there's a time constraint, and you have to be extremely poignant extremely quickly. You tend to do stuff more character driven and less world building driven. So a lot of short stories are set, that you could easily trick somebody into thinking they were nonfiction, because everyone's already familiar with the world fairly well. So you can kind of get away with setting by just setting it in the modern world or a past world that, is not really fantasy driven. But flash fiction is interesting because once you get to the short end of the short story spectrum, you end up almost writing like vignettes as opposed to full fleshed out stories. And the vignettes are fun and have their own little, smaller stories. But there's no there's not necessarily going to be a grand sense of adventure, but there's going to be a lot of concise detail. And this is from somebody who's never written any flash fiction, but this is what I imagine it would be like based on what I have written before. and some of the shorter short stories that I've read. So it's definitely a fun medium to play with, and I'm kind of inspired to kind of do some more with it. But again, I don't really have the expertise to really comment too much on the life of the flash fiction.
Okay. Well, hopefully you manage to have some fun with it, if you do get a chance to test it all out. So, one last pop quiz question. If you all were to do a flash fiction piece, would you start with a traditional Once Upon a Time style setup of starting from the beginning, or would you start en media res in the middle of the action to cut down the backstory a bit and just get things rolling?
I think you almost have to do in media res with flash fiction. Uh, Short stories you can get away with a little bit of backstory, but your reader is only going to be there for a very short period of time, so you want them to be engaged with your story pretty much from the first sentence. Uh, and unlike a longer book where a reader could read a couple chapters before they decide, this isn't really for me, they're basically only going to read the first sentence, or even probably just the title of your flash fic before they even bother clicking on it or reading it. Unless it's like super short, like a couple hundred words, and they might go through it. But yeah, I would definitely do in media res, and there's a lot of, like I said, vignette style pieces that I have in my head based on some of the one-liners that I've submitted for the Muse Food stuff that could make not necessarily great stories, but would make awesome little vignettes, and I'm very excited to try to play around with that.
All right. How about Calvin?
For me, it seemed it would make the most sense to start from the middle, just to like kind of be able to hit the ground running in terms of trying to at least start this, begin the story, and give it a chance to take off with the limited amount of words that you have to write it. Excuse me. You don't have a whole lot of opportunity to like really do the things that you would like to do in that story, as opposed to if it were, say, a short story or even novella length. So kind of hitting the ground running would, well, at least for me, be my best bet to get a flash fiction going.
All right. How about Will?
The beginning is what you make it. For flash fiction, it's if you're going in with the clear, defined purpose of this is a flash fiction, it's safe to assume that there is a before. But you're writing, I would say it's like a scene with its own enclosed plot. So it's the middle of maybe a longer story, but it's beginning of that at the beginning of this part of that story. So it's kind of, I would say it's both in its own way, if I'm allowed to get an answer.
Well, now you're just getting philosophical on us.
It's like Justin said, you have to start in whatever way works for your flash fiction that will draw the reader in a sentence. Because you have only that one sentence to convince someone to read it or not read it. Maybe two sentences, but don't push your luck. I would say that first sentence has to be your read me sentence. You're not going to have a paragraph, you're not going to have a page, you're not going to have chapters. You have a sentence. And maybe a title. Some people won't go past the title.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Heard it before, moving on.
It was a bright and clear day.
Boring. It was a bright and clear day when the thunder clapped from nowhere. Now I'm interested.
As for myself, I probably start in the style of en media res, in the middle of an action scene or something, to at least get characters moving and reacting, but probably closer to the beginning of the overall story, just because that's my style, which probably means that I'd have to speed up a lot of the rest of the story to fit in the word constraints. But it's been a good while since I've done a flash fiction, so I can't really say just how I'd pull it off.
Yeah, you don't have a ton of room for flashbacks and time changes.
Yeah, I would skip flashbacks, but probably find a good place where I can do a time skip, either like between afternoon to evening, or depending on just how long the timeline of the story is. Because just because it's a flash fiction doesn't mean that it has to fit within the span of, say, 24 hours or anything. It could fill an entire lifetime if you do a time skip right. But I don't know. I think it would actually be kind of fun. I'm kind of inspired, as it were, to try it out as well after this. I just need to find the time amidst everything.
Come to the coffee shop with me.
I'm getting kidnapped. Before you can kidnap me, you would have to kidnap me from my current kidnapper, which would be complicated, but impressive.
What if I kidnapped you, let's say, tomorrow morning?
I have a feeling my office would be a little cranky.
Again, not my problem.
We'll actually get into some of those logistics later on in the podcast, but for now, those are our opinions in regards to just how you take on flash fiction. For our viewers and listeners, by all means, post in the comments, how do you tackle flash fiction? What sort of compromises do you take to fit within the word constraints? Post in the comments, continue our conversations. And with that, it's onwards to the highlights reel for this week, where we get to discuss some news articles, any latest bundles and websites of interest, and other shiny baubles that we happen to see throughout the week. Which means I gotta go on screen share. First piece is a news article over on Polygon about how Comixology has just partnered with yet another comic book style organization, specifically Kodansha, which is basically the main player in regards to manga, or at least translated manga. They specified that Kodansha has released 350 titles onto Comixology, with more ongoing, which currently equates to 53 series from Kodansha is now available for purchase on Comixology. Now, while Comixology is the one who handles manga like Sailor Moon, or at least the current renovation of it, Akira, Attack on Titan, all of the Attack on Titans, and various others, including Fairy Tail. Not all of them are on there yet. I think of all of those, like Attack on Titan and Fairy Tail, are on there, but Sailor Moon and Akira haven't quite made it yet. But I thought this was interesting, considering Comixology, for those who are not familiar with it, is basically an online retailer of digital versions of comic books, graphic novels, and now manga. So if you're a DC fan, a Marvel fan, or some of the indie publishers, IDW, Dark Horse, a lot of the more indie publishers, like we even saw Blind Ferret Entertainment on there, and a whole slew of others. It looks like they have the entire everything that Zenescope has ever published looks to be on there, which is kind of impressive considering how much they've published. Like, there is a ridiculous amount of stuff on Comixology now. You can purchase them and toss them on your Kindle, on your tablet. I'm pretty sure you can read them on a browser. Don't quote me on that. You might need to just get a digital comic book reader software, which there's a whole slew of them out there, in order to read it on a computer. I haven't really played around with Comixology much because they are full priced, or they are normally priced digital books, and I can't afford that right now. That's just not in my budget, no matter how many interesting stories they happen to have on there that I really want to read. I have to wait for humble bundles or discounts or sales and stuff like that. But the fact that they're adding manga into their mix is really encouraging because it offers up a lot of opportunity for American readers to read a ridiculous amount of manga now. And you can own your own copies, so you can read them whenever the heck you want. You don't have to necessarily go through services like Crunchyroll, where you have to pay a monthly fee to read them, and you can't save them or download them or anything. They're just online, so you need internet connection to read them and stuff like that. Whereas these, you can purchase, you can download, you can save, you can print them out if you so chose, which would be a little silly, but you could. So it's encouraging that they've managed to pull this off, and hopefully some of the smaller indie publishers out there that do manga translations would be able to get in the mix. Like, I'm blanking on the name of the publisher now. The publisher that does Spice and Wolf and a lot of the other series that we enjoy.
I should know that.
So should I. I can see the Spice and Wolf books on my shelf, but I can't tell what publisher they are from here. That is really frustrating. But if they were able to get some of the smaller...
Yen Press?
Yes, Yen Press. If they were able to get publishers of that size in the mix as well, that would be even cooler. Well, at least for me, because Yen Press has a ridiculous amount of series that I'm interested in. And some of them I don't necessarily want or have space for physical copies, so those I might actually invest in digital copies of. But that would be farther down the road.
Ready to feel dumb?
I'm always feeling dumb.
Yen Press.
Yeah, Calvin remembered it after you left.
Ah. Boo.
But yeah, if you're interested in reading digital copies of a lot of Kodansha's work and you want to own your own copies of these works, definitely go to Comixology. This is a great opportunity. And I'm curious to see what they'll be adding going on in the future. Because there's a lot of Kodansha-based stuff that we don't necessarily manage to get legal copies of. So if this opened up a doorway for them to do so, I'd be all for it. Next up, a new story bundle. As if they didn't have enough already, they still currently have 3, although I think Dynamite Pulps expires like now, as of this recording, because there are only 6 hours left to it earlier. But the latest one is Dragons and Darkness, which I don't know how much darkness is necessarily in all of these books, but there are plenty of dragons and dragon shenanigans. And this one, as with all story bundles, the first row is pay whatever you like. $1 or more gets you the top row, so you would get 4 books. In this case, if you pay $12 or more, you get the second row. And the last book on this side, if you are subscribed to them, then you get their emails and their newsletter thing. You would get this one free. without even having to pay $1 for any of the others. So if you were subscribed, you would get Dragonlands Book 1 Hidden by Meg Jensen for free. Unfortunately, if you want Book 2, you'll have to pay $12 or more because that's on the second tier. But if you paid $1 and up, you would get the first tier, which are Crown Service Book 1 Blades of Magic by Tara Edun, Dragon Friend Book 1 labeled Dragon Friend by Mark Secchia, Champions of the Dawning Dragons Book 1 Thornbear by Michael G. Manning, and War of the Blades Book 1 Dragon Fate by J.D. Hallowell. Do you happen to see a pattern here where you all seem to be getting nothing but book 1s in series? This is a good way to get into series. But you're going to have to track down the successive books on your own beyond this bundle.
It's a lot better than some of the other bundles I've seen where they give you only book 3. And you're like, what?
Yeah, there are a few of those bundles out there, unfortunately. Or if you want book 2, you have to pay the next tier, and if you want book 3, you pay the tier above that. But for the first tier, you get 4 books from 4 different series, so if one isn't necessarily your style, hopefully one of those 4 would be, and you'd be able to read a whole cool series. If you wanted to go all out and pay $12 or more, you would also get Dragon Lore Book 1, A Dawn of Dragonfire by Daniel Aronson, Dragonlands Book 2, Hunted by Meg Jensen, obviously the sequel to Hidden, which is the free book. You'd get Dragonvein Book 1 by Brian D. Anderson, and World of Ruin Book 1, Shadow of the Winter King by Eric Scott DeBie. I apologize for butchering your last name, but I'm horrible at last names. I am tempted by this one, admittedly, but I have so many books that even I admit I can't get this right now. I would have to read so many books to allow myself to get this. I don't even need Justin to prevent me from this one at the moment, as tempting as it is. Because I got 7 books at In-CON-Ceivable, 6 of them ebooks. So if I were able to read some of those to whittle down my digital book load, then I'd think about it.
Also, I'm sure you already have books that you haven't even read yet that involve dragons and darkness.
One. Well, maybe that one. That one. That one. That one. Maybe that trilogy. I don't know about the others. And I can't see others because my bookshelf of to-be-read books is too deep. So yeah, I have a fair amount. I should be good for a while. But for those of you who don't necessarily have an overload of books, or dragons, or darkness, this might be the book bundle for you. And as of this recording, you have 22 days and change to purchase it. So plenty of time to whittle down your to-be-read pile so you can add more to it. And the last highlight for this week is a very interesting website that Justin shared with us, which is playjudgy.com. And I'm actually going to toss this one over to him so he can explain it best.
Sure. So I actually did this wrong the first time, so it's good to explain what it is. Basically, what you do is you rate 10 books based on their cover. Now, the difference is that you're not rating the cover itself, because some of these books have really bad covers. And what you really want to do is rate what you think the Goodreads average rating is for that book. So you're judging the book contents based on the cover, not the cover itself. And I thought this was randomized, but it appears to be
I know I got some of these last time.
Okay, so far I haven't seen any that I hadn't seen before.
I remember that one, but I don't remember the scores I gave or the horror, so I'm just guessing. But it's based off of the Goodreads scores, or at least the average ones for these books. And what happens if I go all out? Well, I was close on that one. But
Hopefully they expand this to more books, because so far this is the exact same books that I saw
Okay.
last time.
But you get to
Spoiler
guess.
alert for the video viewers.
Let's see if we get through all 10.
Keep playing. Maybe the first 10 are set in stone, and then when you hit keep playing, it just sets them up randomly.
Apparently, I managed to get 76% accuracy. Goodness.
It's very forgiving.
Yeah. But one thing that I only noticed this time round is if the book is interesting just based off the cover, you can actually go buy it. There's a little short link up there in the top
That's cool.
corner,
I didn't even notice that.
which is a nice touch. I appreciate that. But it's
Nailed
also
it.
a nice way to check out book covers, because we've talked about them a couple times now on various podcasts and how you should not judge a book by its cover.
You should probably rate that 0 out of 5 stars, the one you have up on the screen now. Terrible book. No one likes it. It's definitely going to get a 0. Oops. I was wrong. It's weird.
Well, if it was the latest one from Harper Lee, I'm curious what the current Goodreads rating on that one is.
Probably a 0.
I would guess 3.2, because I'm sure some people still believe that it's very good, despite the controversy and complications of what it is and why it's out. But yeah, this is a nice little site. You get to see a lot of different book covers, and if you're interested in book cover art or style, or see what's out there and how they're rated. Ooh, I like that one. But I have no idea what the story is. But I was close. Apparently I'm now pretty damn judgy. And if you want to reset, you can go to the other corner and just start over.
Did you read the subtext?
You may know what you like, but you sure as hell know what you don't like. Which is a lot, apparently. So yeah, it's a
Sounds
fun
like this
little
website
game.
is pretty damn judgy.
So definitely worth a playthrough or two if you have a moment. And of course, as always, the links to all the things we discuss in the highlights reel are in our show notes for each episode over on fcwriters.com under the podcast page of Word Ninjas Live little tab. And this will be under episode 107. All right, next up, productivity and inspiration. What have people been up to this past week in regards to productivity and inspiration? Well, we've already discussed the entire convention, so I am going to skip that at least. Others are welcome to comment on it, but since last recording, I've also recorded, it looks like 3 episodes worth for a game break, because I just powered through an entire day's worth of a visual novel, and all it did was frustrate and confuse me even more than I had been before. I still have no clue what's going on in that series, but I'm pushing to get ahead a little bit so that I can maybe wrap up one of these 2 visual novels, so I'm not double fisting it all the time. But we shall see. And I have also set up Operation TGIF for the rest of 2015. What is that? Effectively, if this project is approved at work, I am now working 4 days a week for the rest of the year, because between holidays and personal time off days that I have to burn, I can take Fridays and a couple Mondays here and there off basically every week until next year. So not only will that help prevent burnout, but I'll be able to actually spend entire days focusing on full coverage writers and Inspire the Muse based stuff. and there is a ridiculous amount of stuff on our end that needs pushing this year. So that's actually going to be pretty useful. And I'm excited to get set Fridays off where I can power through some recordings, maybe work on a game script here or there, maybe do some interviews with people who are a little more elusive and hard to schedule time with, because not everyone can do Wednesday night from 7:30 to 9 Eastern Time. Fair enough. People have full lives. But if I could schedule any time on a Friday, or potentially a Monday, that would be great. We might be able to get a video recording, maybe just an audio recording, but the more potential content, the better. And everything else has just been convention related this past week, so not much else to report on my end. But how has Will fared since last Wednesday?
Pretty well. Convention aside, things are still seem to be on schedule for game break recordings and whatnot. I even recorded a little bit today, so I should have enough footage for next Tuesday's episode.
Yay.
Hopefully. Probably. We'll see. I started chapter 30 of My Roommate's a Stripper. Also, yay. I plan to get that completed before the end of the month. Feel good about it. Visualizing success.
Yay.
And in regards to that, I've been contemplating a suggestion I got at In-CON-Ceivable, where Katie over at our friends from A&D Duct Tape suggested the possibility of an audiobook format for those who want to read books but don't have the time to sit down and read a book because they're busy making crafts out of duct tape. But they can listen to audiobooks while making crafts out of duct tape. So I've been pondering the feasibility of how to go about doing that. Probably won't happen until it's finished and I'm happy with it, but it's an interesting idea that I hadn't thought of before. See how it goes, if it can work out.
Cool. And what has Justin been up to since last week?
Not a whole lot of exciting stuff. Survived the weekend. I had that wedding and then immediately the convention, so I haven't really had time to do stuff. I'm excited for this weekend where I have nothing planned, and that is super exciting because
Except
I can actually
kidnap me, apparently.
right. Being productive and chilling out are on my list. And it's a 3-day weekend, don't forget, for some people. And also I've been pondering my 3-year life plan and what
You're
I'm
only
going
going to live for 3 more years?
That is correct.
That's dramatic.
Yep, I'm telling people for the first time on a podcast. No, this is for the next 3 years, where I want to be in 3 years, and what I need to do now to accomplish that. Sort of like the Trello style Terra 2015 stuff, but even more broad. And obviously, don't want to reveal too much on the podcast, but yeah, looking into what I want to do, who I want to be, and where I want to be. Because It will be, after 3 years, it will be 10 years after graduating college. And that's an important milestone.
Well, that's just a scary thought.
Because you're all right there with me or right behind me or in front of me.
All I know is that I've already hit 8 years at work, I think. Which is weird.
Oh, that's right. I got stuck in college for an extra year, so a lot of you are actually technically ahead of me.
You graduated in 08?
Yep.
Okay.
Stupid bastards.
Yeah, don't feel bad. You're in good company.
Yep.
And then there's weird people like me who went back for more.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Because I wanted a business degree.
And also something not in the show notes I just realized is that Nano Season's coming.
Fuck.
So I just wanted to make sure I brought that up again so that everyone could get ready.
I mean, fun times ahead of us. Yeah, I need to get on that as an ML.
2 months.
Blech.
Less.
Yeah. More like a month at this point, where
Mm.
things need to be scheduled and coordinated. Yay.
Yep.
Good luck with that.
Hey, I guess I know what I'm doing with all my free Fridays now. And what has Calvin been up to since last week?
Let's see, what did I do? I've got a couple of paid projects that I've been working on, which has taken my focus away from a couple of things, but hey, money.
Yay, money.
Let's see. Right before the podcast, I took my very first driving lesson, which will be... Oh, bloody hell. Really?
Yeah.
All right. Stall.
Okay. Calvin was going to say that he just took his first driving test, but really, I think his first driving test was basically survive a Kai-Con, considering that he defeated all of Virginia in both directions, through the rain, at night, against trucks. It's kind of hard to beat that. But
Uphill, both ways, in the snow, with no shoes on.
you're even more robotic than Calvin at the moment.
Boo.
So that sounded hilarious. Yay,
Well,
technical
I know my internet
shenanigans.
connection is bad.
But yeah, I know Calvin is working very hard on getting his driver's license, as he's been poking at that on and off for a good while now.
How about now?
Much better.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but Jesus. I've had my learner's permit for off and on 11 years now. So, yeah, it's
Have you learned yet?
I'm learning. Had a couple of crash courses here and there. But I'm taking formal lessons now, so
Have you learned just how much fun various drivers are?
yeah, I had my very first run-in with a truck earlier today.
Hopefully not literally.
Oh, no, not literally. There was a truck that wanted to cut in front of me to make a turn. And, of course, I let it. Because truck,
Hmm.
big ol' 18-wheeler. On a small two-lane street. If you can barely count that as a two-lane street. Jeez. So, yeah, that's the thing I'm working on right now. Let's see, what else? I've been conjuring ideas for music both relating to and not relating to a very large project that is in the works and has an Indiegogo running for it at the moment.
With brand new levels of shiny baubles.
Yes. I need to go badger more friends about it so they can support. Or at the very least share with other people.
Hmm.
And also, thanks to In-CON-Ceivable, ideas have popped in my head for non-music related things.
Yay.
But I will keep that under wraps until I get more of the ideas fleshed out.
Fair enough.
So that's been my week. Hopefully I can get back to said big project after all these paid projects are out of the way. But hey, money.
Yeah, bills kind of trump everything else.
Yep.
And I chip in on helping with the In-CON-Ceivable videos, but we've learned that my computer doesn't really do the little intro things for
Yeah.
gods only know what reason. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I really don't get that one, but
It is what it is.
Maybe one day you'll be able to upgrade to software that is less sad and will not put up a fight with the simplest things.
Maybe.
I will see.
Yes, that was our various weeks. For all of our viewers, by all means, post in the comments how your week went. What have you been productive on? What have you been inspired by? Share with us. Next up, events. Hey, we just had one. Next one up, though, is basically like 2.5 weeks or something like that. Hartford Comic-Con. September 19th and 20th in Hartford, Connecticut. The full crew is going to be there again, and I've apparently managed to get myself a press badge. Not quite sure how I managed that, but I'm going to do my best to take advantage of it. And they actually recently released their panels/events schedule thingy, for those 2 days. There's actually some really good panels that I'm hoping I can record so we can toss them up on the channel. But we shall see. We still have about 2 weeks or so to figure out logistics for that. And a ridiculous amount of guests. And a ridiculous amount of artists. And I have no idea how many exhibitors are there because we don't have a page, which is sad. So I can't say anything in regards to what other exhibitors are there. Just that there are a lot of cool artists, at least. So the artist alley is going to be packed with a lot of great people. So you should come attend and say hello. And of course, we're already scheduled for your Minicon and Kineticon 2016. And I'm sure we'll be scheduled for In-CON-Ceivable 2016 once a date is set. And it would be nice if we could do Brooklyn Book Festival 2016. We would be doing it 2015, but it is the exact same day as Hartford Comic-Con. Brooklyn Book Festival is also the 19th primarily, which is rather frustrating because we can't be in 2 places at once. We haven't really figured that out yet. But maybe next year the planets will align and allow us to go. We shall see. But in the meantime, hey, that's a show. That's all we got for you this week. Which means time to run away and go do other things because it's almost 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. We're all sleepy and tired and busy with other things that need to happen. So,
Amen.
as always, if we happen to have entertained you in any way, shape, or form in the last hour and a half, subscribe to the YouTube channel where presumably you are watching this, or subscribe to our iTunes feed if you are listening to this. And of course, comment, thumbs up, like, share with others. Let other people know of our show and shenanigans. And if you want to talk to us via social media, If you want to toss us interesting websites or news pieces for the highlights reel, or you want to ask us a question that we can do for our talking segment, or anything else really, by all means, reach out to us. You can find us on Twitter at FCWordNinja, Tumblr, fcwordninja.tumblr.com, and Facebook, facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. And if you can't make it to any of the events where we're attending, or you have attended but didn't get a chance to get a shiny bauble, you can go to our Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters, and find all of our current sellables, from buttons to bookmarks to books and booklets and more. All the shiny baubles are up there. And I know we said this before, but we are still working on some new button design upgrades that probably are not going to be in time for Hartford Comic Con, unfortunately, just because of time constraints. But once they are set and good to go, they will be going up on the Etsy store. So if you have literary friends that might need a shiny bauble in time for the holidays, which I know are still far enough away you don't have to worry yet, but soon enough, you can check out the Etsy store for all sorts of shiny baubles and get some of your very own or some to share. And if you want to track me down, have fun with that. I run around like a headless chicken most of the time. But your best bet of getting my attention is my personal Tumblr, fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. And all of the other various ways of contacting me are on the About Us page over on fcwriters.com. Where can people track down Will?
You can usually find me on my personal Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. That's darkhom.tumblr.com. Hopefully there'll be more updates on the roommate blog at myroommatesastripper.tumblr.com, and you can always support me on my Patreon at patreon.com/darkhom.
And where can people track down Justin?
As per usual for now, just mechanicaljustin.com is where I post all my fun things.
And where can people find Calvin?
Instacal.tumblr.com. That's a good place to find me at the moment.
And with that, thank you all for joining us for episode 107 of Word Ninjas Live. Come back next Wednesday, or whenever you happen to find us, for episode 108, where, again, I keep forgetting to have next week's show notes open so I can find out what our talkie point is. But we're talking about something. Something fun. Something entertaining. It's going to take me like 30 seconds to pull that up. I'm not doing that. You'll just be surprised. But until then, have a good week, have some fun, go be creative, make something new, or play with something old and make it shiny again. And until then, see you all next time.